So this week's Parsha is Chukat. Oh, here's Dave Gilbert. Okay. This week's Parsha is Chukat, in which kind of a lot happens. So it starts off with the impurities of coming in contact with a dead body, and then the ritual of the red heifer, which is sort of enigmatic. And I came across a drash that said there was one red heifer situation from all of this moment when it's commanded in the Torah up until Ezra. Like this one that we see done by Moses is the only one until the second temple. And then Ezra does one, and then a handful of other people between Ezra and the destruction of the second temple, and that's it. And the 10th red heifer will not be prepared until Moshiach comes, will be prepared by Moshiach. So it's like sort of this maybe purposefully enigmatic ritual, more so than even the other sacrifices. Then we get Miriam dies, and the wells, all of the waters dry up because she was the bringer of nourishment. The people complain, so God tells Aaron and Moses to speak to the rock, and it will give water, a specific rock. Excuse me. But Moses strikes the rock, which did work once before. There was another time when the people were complaining that they were thirsty, and at that time, God did tell Moses to hit the rock. So he did it, and it worked. And so this time, God tells him to speak to the rock, but instead, he hit it again, and this did indeed work to get water, but God is mad that Moses didn't listen to instructions. So ostensibly, this is the reason that Moses is not allowed to enter the Holy Land. Then Moses sends messengers to nearby kingdoms to request, specifically Edom first, to request that, for safe passage through their land on their way into Canaan. And like promises, we're not trying to conquer your land. We won't do any harm. We just need to get through. But the Edomites refuse. I can't say that I fully blame them. It's sort of a weird request. We're on our way to go conquer this other land nearby. Do you mind if we traipse through your land first? We promise we're not also going to conquer you. I don't know if I would buy that. So they refuse, and then so the Jews continue on their way, or the Israelites, I should say, continue on their way, and they are attacked by the Amalekites. And this happens a few times. The people complain, not a few times in this parsha, but in general, the Amalekites, they come and go. They're our eternal enemies. Another group of people attack. There's a lot of attacking as they're really crossing from the wilderness into civilized territory now. So this is a huge group of people, potentially like 1 million. I think we agreed at some point, right? If there's it says like 200,000 of the census, but that's just men of fighting age. So then you count in the mixed multitudes, the women, the children. I'm guessing it's closer to 1 million. So that's like a lot of people to be coming into now settled territory. It's very different than when they wandered in the desert, where I guess there was nobody around. So the people are threatened, and various neighboring countries or kingdoms to where, around the land of Canaan are attacking. But of course, the Israelites are always victorious because they have God on their side, and they do make it to the eastern bank of the Jordan River, and they are camped outside Jericho, and they are ready at a moment's notice. Although they don't enter until after the Torah, but they're poised. They're at that precipice for a whole book of Torah now, right outside Jericho. So that's a summary. Yeah, is there anything in particular that caught your eye, or any questions that we should start with? David, you took yourself off mute, so does that mean you have one?
I got a little lost
Okay.
in when are they? Because it seemed to me that we were just recently entering the desert, and now it seems like this is 40 years later or close to it. Am I right? Because we've got Miriam dying, Aaron dying, and Moses has already been told you're not going in, and you said they're poised on the brink of entering Jericho. So what happened to all the intervening years, or am I missing something?
Everything else happened in all the intervening years. Like, a lot has happened. It just doesn't feel like a lot because so much of it's dedicated to lists of laws. Like, it doesn't feel narrative. But if you think about, we're at the end, well, we're halfway through Numbers, Bamidbar. So we've already had all of Shmot and Vayikra. And most of Devarim is just Moses is all of them just on that brink of entering Jericho. Like, I get the sense that Devarim happens in a day, basically. Like, or a week or whatever. It's Moses summarizing the previous 3 books. So where we are now, it is, I don't know that it exactly is 40 years. I think, like, as Joel has pointed out many times before, chronology in the Torah is very purposefully ambiguous. But I think we should understand that this is close to the end of the 40 years.
Yeah.
Not just yes, because Miriam and Aaron are dying, and they are very symbolic of that generation. But also, we know, like, a lot of people have died. And so if we're waiting for a whole new generation that have been born in freedom to enter the land, like, we must be coming up on that. Otherwise, there would be nobody left, right? Because the earth has opened up and swallowed whole 2 groups of people. There have been 3 plagues. There's been a lot of stuff that's killed off groups of disobedient Israelites already.
But
So
weren't there disobedient Israelites in this one? Yes,
there are some more here. And they're not punished so directly. But I guess because the time is coming close that they know they are going to die. Aaron and Miriam die. Moses isn't going to enter the land. Like, we're getting, they have no water. It's, it gets pretty severe for them. And I think they come to realize that complaining all the time didn't help anything. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, but also gets changed if the grease doesn't work. You get kicked out. So I think that's sort of what happens here, right? Because every time they complain, God still provides them with what they want. But then there's some other terrible consequence for being unloyal, ungrateful, whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Joel.
Yes, you mentioned that it seemed to work last time striking the rock, and this time's a new situation. The answer, of course, is right in Torah. So at Exodus 17:6, that's when Moses was instructed to strike the rock. And the word they use for rock at 17:6 is al hatsur, tsur, rock. Now, if you look at Numbers 20:10, they do not use the word sur. They use the word selah. Now, selah and sur both mean rock. Therefore, I'm going to recommend to people who are relying on the English translation, you're going to get misled. And where did I pick this up from? From our good friend Malbim, Rabbi Linebush, born 1803. So he's practically our contemporary. And I said, my God, how come no one noticed this till 1803? And of course, when I look back further, I was incorrect. This is all throughout our sages' analysis of these two chapters. And what is really amazing to me is that the writers of the Torah they're just so far ahead of us. Like someone had actually used those two different words in a very, very consistent way. And I wouldn't even noticed it if it were not for Malbim and a few others.
My Safaria is not working. I keep clicking on the verse and the things are not sliding out. Can you so what is significant about the different word for rock that
Okay,
that
so
makes that's the difference?
Ur means a flinty type of rock.
Mm-hmm.
And in Deuteronomy, we also read about Halomish, which means a flinty rock. Flinty rock is a very hard rock, and you cannot merely speak to it. You have to actually strike it. Even when you strike it, it's somewhat of a miracle. Now, fast forward to what we're reading this week in Numbers 20:10. The word Selah refers to a limestone type of rock. And limestone is very porous. And if you're out in the desert and you look around, there's no water, and you can speak to the rock, or maybe you just stare at it, and all of a sudden you notice there's a small channel of water running through the limestone. So, of course, that's merely the Rabbanim, the Mefarashim, kind of pulling that together for us. Like I haven't actually tested that out. I haven't been in the desert, but I can kind of sense what they're saying does make sense. So it's night and day. And that's why God said, he didn't say don't hit the rock, but his message was speak to the rock. If you merely speak to the rock, you will show to others that this is indeed a miracle. Don't bother striking it, because if you're striking it, a couple people like Joel Eichen are going to say, ha, 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 you already knew it was limestone and you knew that water would come out. So let's make that a miracle. Let's make this a miracle.
Okay. Interesting. Aviva Gottlieb Zornberg has a really beautiful. It's been a few years since I've read her drash, but her chapter on this parsha puts a big emphasis on the importance of words and that and following directions that like God said speak to the rock. And she's sympathetic to why Moses hits it because, again, it did work once before. But that, there's a time and a place for action and a time for conversation. And that Moses doesn't always, in this parsha we see that it's, he doesn't know which is which. So I don't know. I also just read a Devar Torah, the Devar Torah this week from Trua, has sort of a similar take about not as much about the need for speaking or whatever, but about action, sometimes being impulsive and not helpful, and that sometimes you need to speak before you act, and even better, she says, listen before you act. And this is all, hers is all in the context of that this Shabbat is Juneteenth, and a lot of progressive Jewish communities are tapping into that and wanting to give acknowledgement to that and everything, but to be mindful of actually listening to Black Jewish voices in how we speak about it in our Shabbat Juneteenth acknowledgements, and not speaking over what this holiday actually means for Black people. And the author is a Black Jew, so just to clarify. Yeah, David.
I had another thing that just, it seemed like the chapter is kind of full of magic in a way. You speak to the rock, water will flow. You take the ashes of red heifer and it makes you clean, even though all the people who prepared it are unclean just by doing it. And then there's the whole business with the copper or brazen serpent that Moses is supposed to make and then put on the rod. And anybody who's been bitten by a snake, all they have to do is look at it and they'll be cured of the poison. And as soon as I read that, what came into my mind was golden calf. You're making a brazen image. Well, I was a little bit taken aback by that.
Except this time it's commanded, isn't it?
Yeah, God commands him to do it.
So there's always a big difference. If God commands something, where is that again? That's later than the golden calf. I mean, than the heifer, right?
Yeah, that is in, hold it, I was just looking it up. It is in 21.
8. Okay, wait, I found it. Yeah. Make a seraph figure and mount it on the standard. Anyone who is bitten looks at it, he shall recover. Right. So
wouldn't that carry kind of it would occur to me that at least some of the people might think, oh, great and wonderful serpent, brazen serpent who has cured me of this, rather than God. I could easily see that zipping over into the area of idol worship.
To be clear, though, it's not just a serpent. A seraph is a category of angel. So when God sends Hanchashim Hasfarim, that's like I don't know, some kind of magic sky serpent that like specifically sent by God. They're not regular snakes.
Oh.
So then for Moses to make this image that will ward off the, like that specific kind of snake bite, like it's all tied together, and it's not that different than from, the other seraphim and cherubim and whatever that are that adorn the altars around the tabernacle. Who led you through the great and dreadful wilderness wherein were serpents, fiery serpents, scorpions, thirsty ground where there was no water, and who brought forth water out of the rock of flint. Yeah. So maybe there were also regular serpents. I don't know. But this is specifically about, I don't know how else to describe, like angel serpents is like a weird, that's not quite right, but they are not normal snakes.
Actually, Deuteronomy 8:15 ties together what I said before with what Dave Gilbert just said now, because in that one verse, it says, who led you through the great and dreadful wilderness, serpents, fiery serpents, and at the bottom, who brought thee forth out of the rock of flint.
Right.
Is Hatsur Hachalomish. Hachalomish is the word chalom, which means to dream, means to be strong. And it refers to the very, very strong rock. That's how they get rock of flint. So I just kind of interestingly, I was reviewing some material from the fall of the late Bronze Age, and some of these civilizations used to worship women, and I've seen some of the archaeological finds, and here are women, and they're encased with these serpents. And as soon as I saw those snakes, I said, oh, that's Hanachashim HaSeraphim. That's the fiery serpents. And I believe in my own mind, I haven't really found this in any literature, but I believe in my own mind that the Bnei Yisrael were really using this as an example. They were saying, oh yeah, oh, by the way, this precedes Judaism by at least 1,000 years. And they're saying, yes, there were all these civilizations who did worship women as their primary goddesses. And here we are, and our religion is going to make a departure from that. So we're going to bring up this fiery serpent idea, and we're going to find out that later on in the time of Josiah, that they did destroy those fiery serpents, as they also destroyed Asherim, as they also destroyed Baalim. I think that's why it's here. It's here for us to understand our heritage and our culture. And because they're talking about the Para Aduma, I was thinking about how did human beings acquire fire? And of course, the answer is Prometheus. Prometheus is from the Greek mythology. Now, there are no more ancient Greeks hanging around studying their own Torah by Zoom, because those guys are all gone, okay? And I was thinking, if they were sitting around somewhere discussing Zoom, would they say that Prometheus is really mythology? Or would they try to say, oh no, he's an actual person? And I say, look how lucky we are. that we've acquired the knowledge to study archaeology, to learn history. My English skills are good. David Gilbert's English skills are good. Rabbi Gold's. Anyway, we can study all these in so many ways. And look how lucky we are. Number two, we're lucky enough to be able to tell ourselves and to tell others who want to join us our culture, our heritage, our language. That's what makes us one people.
Can,
It's good material for a drash for you.
could you explain again about the seraph?
Yeah.
So you're saying that these were actually not so much serpents as they were angelic manifestations?
I mean, I do think they appeared as serpents, and as Joel points out, seraph also means burning, but I think there's a very purposeful, like the fact that God sends them and that it says seraphim and not like, I don't know, there's other words for fire, like that this is yeah, that they are. And it's hard to talk about because our ideas of angels are so crystallized, you know, that they're so influenced by, you know, the Christian hegemony of America or whatever, and media. But yes, like seraphim are a class of the heavenly court.
So they're messengers from God.
Yes. Yeah, right? Because God is mad. So God sends these seraph serpents. Like they're definitely messengers of God. And I don't know, like, do the people know that? Probably. Like, burning serpents are not really normal. So even if they look like snakes, I think the people understand that they come from God, and certainly Moses does. And so when Moses makes this the seraph figure, yes, which also, like, interesting, when God says it, make a seraph figure, the word nachash is not in that sentence at all. Moses decides that he's going to make it look like the serpents that bit the people, that's like his concept of like what it is. But that's not necessarily what God says. And if it, you know, it works, so God's okay with it. I'm just, like, again pointing out that I think there's a distinction between, like, you know, the divine and how our brains are able to process that like we can't conceive of what a seraph actually looks like, because angels are terrifying, as we see in, like, Ezekiel. So the snake is what it, you know, becomes for this purpose.
Oh wait, so seraph, is it Vasim Oto al Panay? Oh no.
No, it's the word before. Aseh lecha seraph. Make yourself a seraph. Visim oto al nis, and put it on the standard. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm with you. I didn't have my magnifying glass. It's hard for me to read without it.
Fair enough.
Okay, now I'm with you. So yeah, so you make a messenger and Moses decided to make it in that shape.
Because that, I mean, and it makes sense, right? If that's what attacks the people. But I'm looking up pterosaurs, thanks to Joel's comment. But I don't know why are they fiery? Yeah, you put the same Deuteronomy text in the chat.
Okay, what about this one? V'shalach Adonai ba'am et hanachashim hasarafim. So in God sent to the people at the fiery serpents, right
Yeah.
there.
No, I know. I'm saying then when Moses intercedes about the fiery serpents,
Yeah.
in verse 8, God says, make a seraph figure. So I'm saying it makes sense that Moses's idea of the seraph figure is the fiery serpents, because that's what seraph, like that's what they just got. But I don't think that that's necessarily the only possibility of what a seraph figure could be.
So of course, again, I follow what I read in the Minoan culture, and I believe it's strictly metaphor. And I believe that the Torah is written as strictly metaphor because it's such a retrojection. It's written hundreds of years after these events were reported to occur. And I think beside that, our oral tradition preserves customs that occurred even thousands of years before, 10,000 years before Abraham even came on the scene. And I believe that we have been a people for 10, 20, 30,000 years. And I think if we look carefully in Torah, we see the preservation of a lot of those oral stories. And the reason why I know they're oral is that writing itself is only 51 centuries old. So there couldn't have been any writing before that. But there certainly was a lot of stories that were kept as memories, passed along, father to son, okay? Hundreds of generations. Just give you a quick example. For example, how come people of the Jewish faith many times do not eat bacon or pork? So the simple answer, of course, is, oh, it says it right in Torah. That's good enough. But someone else wants to know, come on, try to give me something based on archaeology. And I will. So pigs, the history of domestication of pigs is 8,500 BCE, meaning 10,500 years ago at different places around the world. Could be China, could be South America, and also in the Middle East. Now, we are Ivrit. Ivrit in history, there's a lot of evidence of a people called the Habiru. Are you familiar with that? Habiru? Or the Apiru. It's also A-P-I-R-U. It's the same. Who are these guys? It was a loose confederation of people, and I believe it's us, because the word Habiru is so much like Ivrit, consonants. So who were these guys? They were not the main guys who occupied Israel, who put all their settlements in the valley and the Nachal, down where the rivers were. That's like the prime land. And these guys, which is us guys, we were the uplanders. The uplanders lived up on the mountains. And guess what? You cannot domesticate pigs up near the mountain. You know why?
Why?
Look at the shape of a pig. They're very, very chubby, and they have small feet. And if they slip, they're going to roll right down the mountain. You're not going to get them back up. So the Jewish people were more interested in goats and sheep. And goats and sheep happen to be very, very sure-footed. No problem. And also they can eat all that little stubble that is up near on the mountain. And by the way, you can see that over and over in Torah. And you can specifically see lo ma'alot ra, okay? Those who do not bring up the cud are forbidden to you. In other words, that's the pig. He's got a nice split hoof. He's a wonderful animal. We just don't eat them. And the reason being, lo ma'alot ra. Our whole culture is centered around ma'alot, olah. That's that's the first of the sacrifices of the carbonot is olah. Number two, if they call Dave Gilbert up to the Torah, they call him up for an aliyah, same word, aliyot. I can look at baha'alotecha, okay, when you light the lamps, same thing. In other words, we have embraced that in our tradition. We want to raise ourselves up. And when I look back at some of this and say, oh my God, look how wonderful. Here's the Mishnah, and they're paying such close attention. If you have like a little extra money, make sure that you do not cut the corners of your fields. Leave those corners for the widows and the orphans, and you're not allowed to glean. So imagine, while we are repeating and repeating that type of information, here are the Romans, 200 AD, time of the Mishnah, or I guess we're going to say, not AD, we're going to say CE.
Mm-hmm.
What are those guys doing? They're sending out gladiators to go fight with lions. Oh my God, look how lucky we are. Look how lucky we prevailed. Today, what if the Romans were still around today? And they had their own little Mishnah, and we had Colosseums in America, and people fighting lions. Oh my God, I wouldn't want to be living here. So look what we brought to the table. Anyway, that's my connection between archaeology, history, mythology, and us.
Joel, that's an amazing drosh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Proud. We're so proud to be here. We love every word that our rabbis tell us. And yes, I have to interpolate it a little bit. Like I think they use the word nace.
Yeah.
That they were just talking about. So nace, if you're not alert, nace can mean miracle.
Right.
Nace gadol haya sham.
Of course.
Okay. A great miracle happened there. Doesn't mean miracle. What it means a standard, a flagpole. It means Moses is going to put that up on the flagpole. That's what a nace means. And if you look at the etymology of the word, it has nothing to do with miracle. Zero. It's not a miracle. You put it on a flagpole. And I think that's the value of studying Hebrew. Because whenever I run into trouble with the English, I say, wait a minute. I don't even believe these guys. My English is better than theirs. Dig into it, I go, wow, I'm right. Not that I'm right, but the Torah tells it straight up. And I encourage people, I don't care if you know Aleph, Beit, Gimel, that's a good start. And we can learn. We do have problems because like in our shul over here, they do have classes in Hebrew for people. And when I calculated out what it's going to cost somebody to actually learn a little Hebrew, it would be cheaper to get a degree in law from Harvard University. I think I calculated $195,000. And for people
From your synagogue's
even more.
Hebrew lesson?
Even more, because I can see the progress that they're making. And we can learn Hebrew for free. It's free. It's such a simple language to begin.
Well, okay. I mean, different people have different learning needs. So I don't know if I would scoff at that, but that does sound expensive. We don't charge for our classes at Ner Shalom. Which maybe we should, but
I love that. But you know, it's like it's a lot of money. Come on. We have 20 letters. I'm sorry, 22 letters.
22.
5 of them have two forms, mem, so, feet, whatever.
Right.
You can get off the ground. And you know, I think that we have to support that. And I applaud you for that, Rabbi Goldstein. Beautiful.
Here, here.
Well, anyway. So, but I did want to say, so we got sidetracked, but on the point of that David brought up about, is this snake figure idol worship? A common commentary on the red heifer thing, though, is that you know, it's a cow that it relates back to the golden calf. And hold on, let me see if I can find the exact commentary that's like, it compares the mother, like the red heifer. Okay, it's from Midrash Tanhuma. A maid's child once dirtied the royal palace. Said the king, let his mother come and clean up her child's filth. By the same token, God says, let the heifer atone for the deed of the calf. I thought that was interesting. And it's one of those things too, though, like, so that's a cool, you know, why a heifer, but there's so much else about the red heifer symbolism and like how rare they are and everything that, you know, it's very, this is one of those because God said so moments.
By the way, I didn't mean that when Moses made this, it was an idol. I just could see a potential for idol worship coming out
Right.
of it. If not then possibly later.
It's unclear to me how long it sticks around, though, because it's for the healing, I think, specifically of the fiery serpents that God sent. So once those people are cured and there's not more serpents, I don't think it stays around long enough for it to be misunderstood by later people.
What did they do with it? What did Moses do with it?
I mean, I'm speculating wildly now, but my drash would be that he melts it back down and uses the copper for something else.
Okay.
But I mean, I could be wrong. Like I said, a seraph isn't totally out of place in the tabernacle. Like, is a snake that much weirder than the other cherubim statues and stuff? I see what I agree with your concern, but I just don't, I think because it serves such a specific purpose, I don't think they were that concerned about it. Kings 2. He removed the high places and broke in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. Oh, okay, so you are right. They did become, I didn't remember that, or I didn't make that connection. That they had used it for idol worship.
I'll be doggone.
Nehushtan.
Thank you, Joel.
Welcome.
When I was growing up, there was a real argument in Cincinnati over whether Reformed congregations should have any representations of either people or animals anywhere in the synagogue. And some of the more, I don't know the correct word, laxer congregations did, and our rabbi happened to be dead set against it. He didn't exactly call it idol worshiping, but he said he wouldn't have it. So, ours did not. But I would go sometimes to Wise Temple or Rockdale, and yeah, they certainly, I mean, big lions on the doors of the ark and whatnot. But the Rabbi Brav wouldn't have any truck with that at all. It's an interesting man.
That's sort of funny that that discussion was still going on specifically in Reformed temples, because that's like that's also an ancient debate of like, what does it mean that you shall not make graven images? Most people agree, most Jews, I should say, agree that it means of God, right? Or like make graven images as idols. But a lot of synagogues, not just Reform, have artistic representations of Bible stories, Tanakh stories on them. So I don't know. That's interesting. But it's not, I mean, it's not so agreed upon. Like, these arguments are recorded, so like clearly it's not universally agreed upon. But I would say that it's not a crazy Reform invention to have images of people or animals. It's just the Sistine Chapel with the God person that's really a bridge too far. Any last thoughts? I do have another meeting at 1, so I can't go over today. But if there's any last thoughts on the Bible, I mean on the Parsha before we close.
Now, I really appreciate your and I had not looked at the word fiery before as a seraph, and that these were not actual serpents. I just kind of fiery serpents, certainly. And I was kind of thinking of just, that would refer to any serpent that any venomous serpent, if it bit you, your leg would feel like it was on fire.
Oh, sure.
I was doing it like that, but I hadn't actually looked at the Hebrew. Thank you, Joel, for reminding me that I need to do that all the time. And then I would have seen seraph would be, that's not actually a serpent. That's something quite a bit different. So a lot more going on in this chapter than Dave was aware of.
So the JPS leaves seraph. I don't know if your translation said fiery serpents.
I said fiery serpents.
Yeah. See, it's all about which translation you use sometimes. That's why the Hebrew helps if you can.
Yeah.
But
yes, this has been great. I love all of your interpretations. You set me on a lot of path of study, which for me is so important. And I thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, I wish you all well. Continue to study on your own, and perhaps we will reconvene at some time in the future.
All right.
But until then,
thank you.
Enjoy your summers, at least.
How about you too?
All right. Bye.
Bye, Joel.